These are the three places in your American Catholic home where, according to St. John Paul II, the Holy Spirit cannot dwell, and where your prayers may be working against you without you knowing it. And I am going to show you the third and most dangerous place, then the second place, then the first, the one that is probably in your home right now, the bedroom where you sleep. The bedroom where you sleep is the first place St. John Paul II warned could block the presence of the Holy Spirit. Not because sleep itself is dangerous, but because of what enters that room through objects, images, or practices that do not invite God's presence, but something else entirely. Margaret Thornton, 73 years old, from Richmond, Virginia, kept a small wooden statue on her nightstand for 18 years without knowing what it represented, given to her by a well-meaning friend after a trip abroad, and within 11 days of removing it and replacing it with an image of the Sacred Heart, she slept through the night for the first time in 3 years without waking in fear. The place where you sleep is the place where you are most vulnerable, and St. John Paul II understood what many Catholics have forgotten. Where you rest, what surrounds you in the hours of darkness, determines whether your dreams are protected or exposed. Later in this video, we have the second place and the third and most dangerous place, according to St. John Paul II. And now, the second place, the kitchen where you prepare food for your family. This is the second place St. John Paul II identified as a location where the Holy Spirit cannot dwell if certain practices or objects are present, because the preparation of food is not a neutral act in Catholic tradition. It is the extension of the Eucharist into the home. It is where nourishment is blessed, where thanksgiving is offered, and where the work of a mother or grandmother becomes a prayer in itself. But when this place carries something that does not honor God, when it becomes a place where superstitious practices enter disguised as tradition, when objects that belong to another spiritual system sit beside the crucifix without anyone questioning their presence, the Holy Spirit withdraws. He does not force his presence where he is not welcomed by what shares the space. St. John Paul II wrote about this in his personal reflections on the dignity of work, that even the smallest labor in a Catholic home becomes sacred when it is offered to God, but it becomes a stumbling block when it is mixed with practices that come from fear instead of faith. He saw this happen in Poland, where Catholic kitchens sometimes held remnants of folk magic passed down through generations, small rituals performed to keep harm away from food or to ensure abundance. And he saw how these practices created confusion in the hearts of women who loved God, but did not understand that love cannot share a room with fear. Helen Briggs, 69 years old, from Omaha, Nebraska, hung a small woven charm above her stove for 24 years, something her mother had given her, told it would protect the family from illness. She prayed the rosary every single night. She attended daily mass during Lent. She raised her children to love the church, but her kitchen, the place where she worked hardest to serve her family, held something that did not come from the faith she professed. One afternoon in October, sitting at her kitchen table after returning from confession, she opened a small booklet someone had left in the parish hall about objects in Catholic homes, and she read one paragraph that mentioned charms and protective tokens that do not come from church-approved sacramentals. She looked up at the charm above her stove. She said out loud, "I never asked what this was. I never asked where it came from." Her daughter was standing in the doorway and heard her. Her daughter said, "Mom, Grandma wasn't Catholic when she was young. She converted after she married Dad, but she grew up with that stuff. You know that." Helen stood, walked to the stove, took the charm down, and placed it in a bag to bring to her priest. Within 2 weeks, her youngest son, who had not spoken to her in over a year after a bitter argument, called her. He did not explain why. He simply said, "I've been thinking about you, and I wanted to talk." Within 6 weeks, he came home for Thanksgiving. Helen wrote in her prayer journal, "Something lifted the moment I took that thing down, like a weight I had carried so long I didn't know it was there." The kitchen is the heart of the home, and what hangs in that heart determines whether blessing flows or whether something unseen blocks it. Later in this video, we have the third and most dangerous place according to St. John Paul II. And now, the second place has been given, but not the third. The third place is not where you would expect. It is not a room at all. And now, the third and most dangerous place, according to St. John Paul II, the space directly in front of the crucifix or the image of Mary where you pray every day. This is the third and most dangerous place where the Holy Spirit cannot dwell, and it is the most misunderstood warning St. John Paul II ever gave to Catholic families, because it sounds impossible. How could the space in front of the crucifix, the very place where you kneel in devotion, the very place where you have offered your suffering and your petitions for decades, be a place where the Holy Spirit cannot remain? The danger is not the crucifix. The danger is not the image of Mary. The danger is what stands between you and that image when you pray. St. John Paul II understood something that most American Catholics have never been taught. The act of prayer does not create intimacy with God automatically. Prayer can be blocked, not by God, not by sin alone, but by the state of the heart carrying unconfessed resentment into that sacred space. When you kneel in front of the crucifix and you have not forgiven someone, when you stand before the image of Mary and you are holding bitterness toward a person who hurt you, when you pray the rosary while rehearsing in your mind the injury someone caused you and the justice you believe they deserve, the Holy Spirit withdraws from that space. Not because he has abandoned you, but because the sin of unforgiveness creates a wall he will not cross until you remove it yourself. This is what St. John Paul II documented in his writings on mercy after he survived the assassination attempt in 1981. He was shot by a man who wanted to kill him. He forgave that man by name. He visited him in prison. He sat across from him and spoke to him as a brother, and he wrote later that the act of forgiveness was not optional for a Catholic who prays. It was the doorway through which every other grace must pass. Without forgiveness, the prayers we offer cannot rise. They circle back to us. They remain trapped in the space we are kneeling in, blocked by the very bitterness we are holding while we speak the words of the Our Father. This is the place where American Catholic women suffer most. This is the wound that does not heal because it is fed every time she prays without forgiving first. She kneels before the crucifix. She begs for peace. She begs for healing. She begs for her family to be restored. And she does not understand why nothing changes. The reason is standing between her and the image she is praying to. The person she has not forgiven is occupying the space where the Holy Spirit should dwell. Frances Kelly, 71 years old from Buffalo, New York, prayed the rosary in front of a small wooden crucifix in her living room every single evening for 37 years. She had attended daily mass for most of her adult life. She had raised 4 children in the faith. She had buried her husband 6 years earlier and carried his loss with a faith that her entire parish admired. But there was one person she had not forgiven, her sister. They had argued over the care of their mother in the final years of her mother's life, an argument that became so bitter they stopped speaking entirely. Her sister lived 12 miles away. They had not seen each other in 9 years. Frances prayed for her sister by name during the rosary. She asked God to change her sister's heart. She asked Mary to soften her sister's pride, but she never once asked God to soften her own. One Tuesday evening in March, kneeling in front of the crucifix as she had done thousands of times before, Frances began the sorrowful mysteries. She reached the first bead of the second decade, and she stopped. She could not continue. She said out loud, "I can't do this anymore." She sat back on the floor, her knees aching, her hand still holding the rosary, and she said, "I have been asking you to fix her for 9 years, and you haven't done it because I won't forgive her first. That's it. That's what this is." She did not hear a voice. She did not see a vision. She simply knew, with a clarity she had not felt in years, that every prayer she had prayed in front of that crucifix had been blocked by the resentment she was carrying into that space every single night. The Holy Spirit had been waiting, not for her sister to change, for her to forgive. The next morning, Frances drove to her sister's house. She had not called. She had not planned what to say. She knocked on the door. Her sister opened it and stood there, shocked, silent. Frances said, "I'm sorry. I should have said that 9 years ago. I was wrong, and I need you to forgive me." Her sister started crying. They stood in the doorway and held each other without speaking. 3 weeks later, her sister came to Mass with her for the first time in a decade. Frances wrote in a letter to a friend, "I spent 9 years praying for a miracle, and the miracle was waiting for me to forgive her. The moment I did, everything I had been praying for started happening, not because God finally heard me, because I finally removed what was blocking him." After Frances, there was another woman, Dorothy Walsh, 74 years old, from Scranton, Pennsylvania. She had not forgiven her son for marrying outside the church 22 years earlier. She prayed for his conversion every day. She prayed that his wife would come to the faith. She prayed that their children would be baptized Catholic. She knelt in front of the image of Mary in her bedroom and begged for this intention with tears. But she held in her heart the belief that her son had betrayed the faith, and she had never told him she forgave him for that. Within 8 days of calling him and asking his forgiveness for the distance she had created, her son asked her to attend Mass with him and his family. His wife, who had resisted the church for 2 decades, asked Dorothy to explain the rosary to her. If you are watching this video right now, and there is someone you have not forgiven, someone whose name comes to your mind the moment you hear the word forgiveness, someone you have been praying about instead of forgiving, recognize that this is the place in your home where the Holy Spirit cannot dwell. It is not the bedroom. It is not the kitchen. It is the space you are kneeling in right now, the space in front of the crucifix, the space where you hold your rosary and beg God for healing while refusing to release the person who hurt you. And if you are identifying right now that this is the blockage you have been carrying without naming it, that this is the reason your prayers have felt powerless, then the warning has already reached you. These are the 3 places in your home where the Holy Spirit cannot dwell, according to St. John Paul II. The bedroom, where objects that do not honor God remain on your nightstand or in your closet without you questioning their origin. The kitchen, where superstitious practices disguised as tradition share space with the crucifix and create confusion in the heart of a woman who loves God but does not understand she is serving 2 spirits. And the space in front of the crucifix, where you kneel to pray while holding unforgiveness in your heart, creating a wall the Holy Spirit will not cross until you remove it yourself. These are not superstitions. These are theological truths St. John Paul II documented because he saw them destroy the prayer lives of faithful Catholics who never understood why their homes felt spiritually cold despite their devotion. In the Gospel of Matthew chapter 5, verse 23, Jesus says, "If you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First, go and be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift." The space in front of the altar is the same space you kneel in when you pray at home. If you come to that space carrying unforgiveness, the gift you are offering cannot be received. Not because God rejects you, but because the sin you are holding blocks the grace you are asking for. St. John Paul II lived this. He forgave the man who tried to kill him. He understood that forgiveness was not a feeling, it was a decision made in obedience to Christ. And the moment that decision was made, the blockage was removed, and the Holy Spirit could dwell again. Here is what you are going to do. Tonight, before you go to sleep, walk through your bedroom and remove anything that is not a sacramental approved by the Church. If you do not know what it is, if you cannot name the saint it represents or the blessing it carries, remove it and bring it to your priest. In your kitchen, remove any object that was given to you as protection or luck or abundance that does not come from the Church. If it was passed down from a relative who practiced something other than the Catholic faith before converting, it does not belong in a Catholic home. Take it down tonight. And before you kneel to pray in front of the crucifix or the image of Mary, say out loud the name of the person you have not forgiven. Say it to God. Say, I forgive this person right now. I release them. I ask you to bless them. And I ask you to forgive me for holding this for so long. Do this tonight, not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready, tonight. Because St. John Paul II, who suffered through an assassination attempt, who carried physical pain through the final decade of his life, who prayed through the darkest nights of his papacy, taught that the protection of your home begins the moment you remove what does not belong there, and the moment you release the person you have been holding in bitterness. He did not wait. He acted immediately. So must you. The Holy Spirit is waiting to return to the place you have been praying. He has not abandoned you. He has been waiting for you to remove the blockage. And tonight is the night you are committing to remove it. You know someone who has been praying faithfully for years, whose prayers feel blocked, and she does not know that one of these three places may be the reason. You know a daughter or a granddaughter who keeps objects in her home without understanding that they are working against her spiritual protection. You know a woman in your parish whose family has been struggling and who has tried every novena and has not considered that unforgiveness may be occupying the space where the Holy Spirit should dwell. Send this video to her, not as advice, as an act of charity. Pass the warning to someone who needs it the way faithful Catholics have always protected each other through the truth. May the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit bless your home tonight and remove every blockage that has kept His presence from dwelling fully in the place where you pray. May St. John Paul II, who forgave the man who tried to kill him and who documented the power of mercy for every Catholic who would come after him, intercede for you tonight as you remove what does not belong and release the person you have been holding. When these three places are cleared, when the bedroom is purified, when the kitchen is restored, and when the space in front of the crucifix is freed from unforgiveness, the Holy Spirit returns, and the prayers you have been praying for years finally rise. You were never abandoned, you were blocked, and tonight the blockage is removed.